After a small victory against Elias and Lilith in Act 3, we have our hands on a Sightless Eye and look to use it against them. In this act, we'll be breaking down all the story points within Act 4 of Diablo 4. Let's get into the story. We find ourselves back at the Forsaken Chapel and ask Thaisa how she's feeling. She mentions that she can cut out Andariel's whispers most of the time, but not always. Lorath believes that some whispers are a much better alternative than having her walk the world again. He wonders how Andariel fits into Lilith and Elias's plans before asking to go over what we know thus far. We mention her deal with Astaroth, to which Lorath finds an interesting choice of an ally, since Astaroth served her father Mephisto. Not to mention that she currently possesses a key to Hell, a place where she is seen as a traitor. So why would she want to go? Lorath is concerned that Lilith might already be in Hell, believing that we should use the Sightless Eye to help us since Elias was using it to contact Lilith. We use the Sightless Eye to see the current location of Lilith and Elias, as they are in the midst of a conversation. Lilith mentions that her father's essence is reforming. Elias asks how she can tell, to which she responds that she feels like 1,000 old wounds are being ripped open again. He is still weak, however, vulnerable. Lilith plans to strike before he can resist. It's not long after this that Lilith senses something, narrowing in on our gaze. We mention to Lorath that she saw us, and he says that it's only a matter of time now before she comes for us. We, however, think otherwise, mentioning that her current objective seems to be focused more on her father Mephisto, since she is trying to take his power while he is still weak. Lorath begins to think of a solution before coming to a realization, mentioning that if she manages to take Mephisto's power, she will become like a prime evil herself, being able to conquer Hell and Sanctuary alike, and he now has an idea of how to stop her. He gives us a letter and mentions that we need the help of an old ally, Donan, saying that he would have gone to Kyovashad for guidance after the loss of his son. We pose the question to Lorath that if Lilith were to take Mephisto's power, could it possibly help Sanctuary in the long run? He acknowledges that it would strike a massive blow against Hell, but it would unlikely be for our benefit, since all of her actions are also led by hatred. We ask Thaisa what she knows of Andariel. She mentions that she knows more about her than she would like to, describing her pain as primal and wordless. Once a part of something more, but Andariel doesn't like her to think about it. We head to Kyovashad and find Donan in the cathedral. We tell him that we have a letter for him and he hopes that it's of good news for once. When we mention that it's from Lorath, let's just say the man is not quite as enthused. He reads the letter, written in Herodrim code. We ask him what it says and he is not surprised that Lorath didn't tell us, since that would require a basic degree of consideration. Lorath wishes to imprison Lilith within Donan's Soulstone, the same one that held Astaroth. He believes that it cannot work, at least not at the moment, since the Soulstone would need to be attuned to Lilith first, and for that, we would need an expert. We mentioned that Lorath was hoping that Donan would be that expert. Donan replies that Lorath is even more foolish than he thought if he believed that. He asks us to go to the Herodric Vault, as he will dig up what he needs, and then once we deliver it all to Lorath, hopefully Lorath will leave him alone. We reach the vault, and Donan mentions that there is an intruder inside the vault. We just mention that she's simply a child. Donan thinks it's ridiculous for us to bring a child to the vault, but we correct him because in fact it was her that technically brought us here. Narration is practically drooling all over the Herodrim notes as we awaken her. Donan tells her off for swinging the staff around, claiming that it's not a toy, before mentioning that he once lived in this vault, and wants Narration to explain why she is here. She says that she is a student conducting research into the Herodrim. Donan asks if Lorath is her teacher. She says that she doesn't need one, since Lilith threatens Sanctuary as we speak, and she will prepare for that with or without help. Donan scoffs at the remark, making fun of Narration for thinking that she could stop Lilith, before leaving to gather his notes. He does say, however, while walking, that he was once like Narration, having more dreams than he knew what to do with. While Donan is collecting the notes, he mentions that the Soulstone magic is incredibly treacherous, even in the most skilled hands, and that since Lilith hails from her father's domain of hatred, that is the essence that will need to be attuned to the stone for it to work. Donan has kept a map of all the places that Mephisto's hatred still lingers, so we can go and collect it. He finds his old Herodrim amulet on the table and we ask about it. Donan mentions that he bets Lorath still wears his, since the Order's mission was his lifeblood. Donan, however, couldn't give up his life for it, not like Lorath. He wanted to be a man, have a family, chasing fellowship and glory. But all of it for nothing since the death of his son. He goes on to say that he can't do it. The Soulstone won't work anyway with him, saying that the stuff that Soulstones are made of is as old as the eternal conflict itself, with magic so primordial that you require faith and spirit, of which he has none. We reiterate that he is the only one that can help us, and he agrees that unfortunately we may be right, insisting that he can't make any promises for us, but he will try for us and Lorath, agreeing to hear what he has to say. We return to Narration as she is getting excited over some of the books that she's read within the vault. Donan and her bond over the books of Kalhar, calling her work masterpieces, as she brings up the fact that she wishes to join us on the journey back to Lorath. Since she now knows the Horadrim ways, their magic, and even the coding writing system that they use. And since Lilith took her mother, she will do whatever it takes to stop her. We ask Donan how many people have lived within the vault. He says that it was Elias, Lorath, and himself, joined by an angel, Tyrael. Narration asks if he is referring to an angel like Andariel, with Donan saying that Tyrael and Andariel are very different, fortunately. Tyrael set off before Elias did. He wasn't sure what drew him away, but he could tell that Tyrael was afraid. The Horadrim fell apart after that. When asked about Soulstones, he mentions that they are like the Horadrim's greatest weapons, but also their greatest curse. There is nothing like it in existence. The very first Horadrim used a set of Soulstones to contain Diablo, Mephisto, and Baal, and that power comes at a cost. Since the Soulstone must always be guarded, it consumes your days and dreams, becoming a prisoner as much as the demon within the stone, and the evil inside the stone always finds a way out. But even with all of that being said, it is the best way that Donan can think of to contain a demon, wishing that he knew a better alternative. We head back to the campsite and find Thaisa outside, struggling. She is saying that Andariel is getting louder, screaming and laughing, unable to even tell the difference. She tried to push her down but needs some fresh air, some place to clear her mind and find a moment of quiet. We speak with Lorath and he reiterates the plan to capture Lilith in the stone before she can attempt to take Mephisto's power for herself. We mention that we don't have the time required to prepare the stone, so why not just fight her? He doubts our ability since we have her corrupted blood in our veins, but regardless, fighting her is kind of a last resort. Even if you could defeat her, she would eventually come back. But with the stone, it wouldn't be an issue. Donan points out that Soulstones do eventually fail, given enough time, but Lorath believes that Donan will find a way. A sandstorm begins outside and Narration realizes that she cannot see Thaisa anymore and runs out to check on her. Once outside, we find out that her moment of fresh air has turned into a bit more of a dangerous situation. As Elias has now captured her, he says that our fumbling with the eye has led him straight to our camp. He mentions that the runes inked into Thaisa's skin form a waypoint. She is a beacon across realms. He levitates her over the symbol that formed on the ground, almost like a key for a lock, stating that her part is now done, and so is ours since we won't be around much longer. It turns out that the Maiden of Anguish, Andariel, is back in all of her nightmarish glory. We hold off the lesser evil, causing her to burn to a crisp. We head back inside and notify Lorath and Donan of what happened. Thaisa mentions that before Elias went to the steps, he went to Hawazar, taking something that wasn't his. It is why she was hunting him, mentioning that she has a friend in Hawazar that has mastered the art of immortality. Yeah, I think that might just come in handy. She offers to take us to her, as she could know his secret. Lorath praises us, saying that the fact that we stood against a lesser evil and lived is no normal feat. We get some more narration from Lorath, wondering what Deckard Cain would have written in his chronicles if he had seen us. Two old friends and new allies that were eager to learn from our vast knowledge, bound against the darkness, like the Horadrim of old. Lorath believes that Lilith's plan, all along, was to take Mephisto's power. Not to save humanity, but to simply rule over hell itself. But Elias was too blind to see it. And that wraps up the events of Act 4. A very short one this time around, but be sure to be back for Act 5 tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you enjoyed the video or found it informative, make sure to like and subscribe and write down the word Andariel to show that you've made it to the end. Thank you again for watching. We have a lot more videos on the channel that you might just like, so go check them out. Until next time, peace.